recording button to start. Great. Good evening and welcome to my IT5 students. I'm so happy that you are joining us, and more especially, I'm so happy that we have a very, very special guest with us. If you check the chat and you check the the video, we have Mr. Mandla. Well, I call him Mr. Mandla, right? But you got to call him Sir, okay? He's our guest lecturer. Hello, Mr. Mandla. Hi. How are you, Mr. Mandla? Mr. Mandla, you muted, Mr. Mandla.
Oh, I'm speaking to myself now.
Yes.
I'm good, Doc. How are you? How's everyone?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Mr. Mandla, I'm so happy that you joined us this evening. I'm so happy that you gave us your time, more especially. And you could be with your family, you could be watching TV, you could be playing sport or going to the gym, but you're with us. And I know that's because you like teaching and you're a specialist in ACL. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Mandla. I know you work at the ITSS department, and I know that you helped us with ACL. Just as if I'm an interview, we're in an interview and I'm talking to you. Tell me, Mr. Mandla.
Let's see, am I audible? Oh, yes, I should be audible. Just confirm, Doc, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Sorry, I had muted myself. Yes, you are, loud and clear.
Okay, great stuff. Let me rather, Doc, also put up a slide while I give a little background about myself. Let's see here. I might have to turn off the video to preserve bandwidth, but I guess everyone has seen me already, so I think it should be fine if I turn off the video now.
Yes.
Okay. Great stuff. Thanks, Doc. So obviously my name has already been given to you guys. Mandla is my name. And just to give you a brief background about myself. So I started off my career as your traditional IT technician a couple of years ago. I think it's just over 10 years, 14 years ago. As a typical IT technician, so you would know an IT technician is someone that looks after desktops, printers, all of the end devices, including some part of network devices. Then, in fact, I eventually became a network administrator in one of the state-owned enterprises based in Joburg. So I was that person who was quite technical, but I think it was just a blessing in disguise that I was then introduced into data analytics, where I had then moved to a consulting firm specializing in data analytics that was giving support to the internal audit industry. That was ACL, by the way, that I'm going to take you guys through today. So I've kind of had both sides of the coin, where I was at some point an auditee, which is the client, and I then changed careers. When I joined data analytics, I became the auditor. So I kind of have both sides of the coin. I kind of know what an auditee feels like and goes through, and what an auditor feels and goes through. Feels like and goes through. So after having consulted a couple of years in the data analytics space, I then left the consulting space and joined one of the, I think it's one of the best digital, I would call it, it's also a bank now, but it was more in the medical space at the time only, but now it's kind of joined. I'm not going to mention the name, but you can pick it up from my explanation what company that was. So there I was actually a data analyst supporting the internal audit team to provide some insights into data analytics. And then after that, I joined DUT as a analyst programmer. However, I think management did see a gap around IT governance, risk and compliance. Then I assumed that role as the IT governance risk and consultant officer, compliance officer. That's what I'm currently doing for DUT at least. Yeah, so that is a bit about myself. I'm actually coming from the flat land of the Eastern Cape, Doc. So I'm an Eastern Cape boy. I'm a married guy with 3 kids, very blessed. So I stay with my wife and kids here in Durban currently. Doc, that is a brief background about me. I don't know if you want to jump in before we get on to the business of the day.
Yes. No, yes, I want to jump in. Thank you, Mr. Mandla. And I'd just like to remind you and the students that, believe it or not, I also started off as an IT technician at DUT in 1999. If you go to the Ritson Road campus, those labs, I physically worked and with those labs, and I know exactly where you're coming from. And Mr. Mandla, I just wanted to, ask you, I believe you're studying, Mr. Mandla.
Yes, I am actually doing my master's, focusing on risk-based data analytics, especially in the IT space. So that's where my focus is. So yeah, I'm also learning, Doc. Thanks.
Oh, excellent. By the way, students, I knew that Mr. Manley is studying for his master's, and he's so humble, he didn't go and talk about his master's study. Now, Mr. Manley, I'd just like to ask you, how did you reach the stage of your master's? What is your study, your route that you had followed?
Say that again, Doc, so that I can pick up.
How did you reach the stage of your master's? Because I want my students who are postgrad students to know your journey.
Oh, yes. So basically, Doc, I'm one person that likes to be aligned with the industry and the changing world. Requirements in the IT field change every now and again, and at a very frequent and fast pace. So for you to remain relevant, you do need to, get to study. And don't just study without any accreditation, because someone else needs to validate that you have indeed undergone some studying. So hence I thought to myself, you know what, let me also do my master so that I can have someone else validate that I am competent and I have the expertise that the industry is looking for.
Excellent. So, Mr. Mandla, you have a diploma, Mr. Mandla?
I've got both a diploma and a BTech with Walter Sisulu University. I was specializing in communication networks, so I did a lot of Cisco for network administration. So remember, I started off as a technical guy, so that was where my focus was before my career changed into the data analytics space. In fact, I've also did a couple of other certificates along the way to remain relevant. One of which, in fact, 3 of them talk to data analytics, so SQL database administration, ACL certified data analyst. I also did MATLAB, Doc, which I believe DUT is also providing to its students. So I did Python also. So these are some of the certificates that you pick up along the way so as to remain relevant with the industry.
I'm so happy that you are telling me all of this. By the way, I want my students to unmute themselves or to raise their hand and to ask a question because they know about MATLAB. Believe it or not, I started them off on that. And believe it or not, I've been talking about this ACL certification. And I'm so happy that you mentioned that you had done the ACL certification. And Mr. Mandla, I want to remind the students that you are taking time away from your wife and 3 kids. I hope your wife is understanding and she doesn't mind that you're working after hours. So thank you very much, Mr. Manla. Even before you start, I know that you will do an excellent presentation. May I just ask my students, before Mr. Manla starts, if they have any questions that they'd like to ask Mr. Manla regarding his journey to where he has started from the Eastern Cape and now he's here at DUT and he's talking to us and giving us a presentation on data analytics. Students, you can raise your hand or unmute yourself and go ahead and ask a question. Anybody with a question?
It's not actually a question for me, say. Yes. I was going to tell Mr. Mandla that I'm also from the Eastern Cape and I also went to the same university that he was on, like WSU. I'm also from Walter Sisulu, so.
Wow, great, great to hear that. Now that gives me some comfort, eh? I'm protected, eh?
Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Mr. Manla, if there's Tina. Tina, my student. Tina joined me with the guest account. I don't know why, Tina. You need to sort out your account. Tina, unmute and go ahead.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, sir, Mr. Mandla. I didn't know what to call you, Mandla. So I work for eThekwini Municipality in the Internal Audit Unit. And the data analyst is the only person within our unit who gets a counter offer in case they get a job offer from somewhere else. So this person is well taken care of within our unit. And our unit consists of more than 150 people, but he's the only one who is the untouchable. So we also aspire to become a data analyst. So just wanted to find out if you're coming from the internal audit background, how do you get to have this certificate of the data analysis? Thank you.
Thanks, Tina. Can I answer your question in one of the slides? I've got a slide that talks to just the skill set around internal auditing. Is that fine with you?
Cool. Thank you so much.
Great stuff.
Students, if there's no questions, you can either type it in the chat, but I'd like to ask Mr. Mandla to start with his presentation. I don't want to keep him away from his family. Just now his wife is going to call me and say, why, I got supper ready, and he's not going for supper. So Mr. Mandla, it's over to you.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Doc, for the opportunity, and welcome to all of the delegates here. And I hope and wish that you guys are going to have a great time, and do interrupt me at any given point where you have a question, so that we make sure we iron it out before you lose us altogether. With that said, I've already given my background. So I thought, let me just also put this slide up. I'm sure you've seen this slide on social media, especially Facebook and stuff, which kind of gives you an overview. This is actually as of 2021, by the way. I've not seen the latest one, and I'm sure it will probably be more realistic than this one, but it's not very far off, I believe so. So this is what is happening in the internet every 60 seconds. This is not 60 minutes, every 60 seconds. So research says that we are actually generating data every 60 seconds, more than 10 years worth of data generated in the history. So that means all of our systems that we are using are actually depending on data for efficacy. So every process that we do, it either generates data or leverages of data for it to complete successfully. So when you look at this picture, we are told about 1.4 million scrolling. So there are people, as we speak, in like 60 seconds, also scrolling up and down on Facebook. So about 1.4 million of those in 60 seconds. Can you imagine the amount of data that is created from just those scrolling? I'm sure you are aware of LinkedIn, which is like a professional Facebook. So there you've got about 9,132 connections made in just 1 minute. So that is just the vast amount of data that is created in the internet every minute. So there's a whole lot of other things you can see in the picture. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm trying to give you this picture that there is too much data being generated in the industry within just a minute. And that also tells you that every process that you do, every technology that you have sits on top of data. And that just tells you that there is a need for one to get an understanding and appreciation of how to actually interpret that data to contribute towards decision making. So essentially, that's what I wanted to kind of give you in there. And you see here, so there was this research by Hodsud, where it kind of explains the very same slide that I showed you previously, but it kind of contextualizes it in terms of growth, right? And you can see there's what is called a digital ID or digital identity. So your accounts on Facebook, webmail, all of these different platforms that you use, they create what is called a digital profile for you. So someone can, in fact, and know about you without even seeing you. So you can just go onto your social media and see you are posting that you're actually going on vacation in June. So they know that you'll be in UK in June, visiting this and that, and they even know where you're going to be going with. They can even tell the places that you went to today, just looking at your digital footprint, because some of us like checking in when we visit some of these nice places. So this picture is kind of giving you, it's building up on the concept that I just explained to you, that at every given point, there's actually data being generated. But now when you look at this slide here, you would see it's basically a comparison between 2020 and 21, and you see the number of increase in terms of percentages. Digital population from 2020 to 2021 increased about 1%. Now, can you imagine if you had about plus 81 million digital identities, to add 1%, that was just in between 2020 and 2021. And at that point, the lockdown was not as hard as it was after 2020, where you had a lot of people working online, by the way, which I think would have created more of these digital identities, right? So just to get that at the bottom of, at the back of your head, that there's actually data being created every time with your cell phone, with your computer, you're browsing through the internet, there's some trail that is being left behind. And there is someone that needs to be able to make sense of that trail and give a position and interpret it for management or executives to make informed decisions. I'm not sure if you've heard about Envision 2030, but the institution has adopted a 10-year strategy started in 2020, 2020 being year zero. Now we are on year 3, right? So this strategy is basically setting some targets for us. And one of the things, by the way, that we've seen in the industry is the increase of the challenge around the data analytics skill. If I remember, Tina, you had asked why this one person who's a data analyst is so respected and taken care of. Well, if you understand the concept of supply and demand, you would appreciate that when there is a low supply with a high demand, obviously there will be some sort of inflation there on the supply. So that's basically the case with with your resource there at the municipality. So we've seen that there is actually a shortage of the skills around data analytics. In fact, even if you look at the critical skills that were published by the presidency, data analysts are also included in there. This is one of the critical skills that one needs to invest himself on. There was an article by Risk Academy back in 2019 on what the future of internal auditors will look like. So basically, one can't really go anywhere in the audit world without hearing about the need to use data analytics. You can go anywhere in the audit space. You will always hear people talking about the need of data analytics. In fact, there was this new concept a couple of years back called CATS. So the internal auditors leverage of data analytics to contribute onto their audit processes. In fact, data analytics is the only applied skill in the audit fraternity that other industries like about internal audit. For instance, internal auditors, when you look at them, they business, like I mentioned to you, that I've had the opportunity to be an auditee, right? When you look at the internal auditors, you look at these people as the police of the environment. But now when they introduce this skill of data analytics, now business starts to see value and look at auditors not just as police. In fact, they should not even look at them as police, but they must just look at them as the strategic partners, because data cannot lie. Someone once said, in God we all trust, but everybody else must bring data. So that's what is being adopted in the industry then. Now, by including this skill, in fact, the CIAs also, which are your chief internal audit, they actually look at auditors that have that data analytics skill when they go out in the industry to find resources. So if you don't have a data analytics skill at this day and age with fourth industrial revolution, I'm afraid, my friend, you will be at a disadvantage when it comes to securing a job. So if I was a chief audit executive and I have two candidates with the same experience, except for one has data analytics, has had a data analytics exposure, obviously I will default to that one, because I need someone who's going to be relevant with the current needs. Now today we'll be looking at ACL. So basically, there's what is called a magic quadrant, which Gartner, I'm not sure if you know about Gartner. In fact, Gartner, as the institution, you've got campus access. You should have access to that platform where you can look out a lot of resources around what is happening in the industry. So Gartner normally on a yearly basis issue out what they call a magic quadrant on different areas. So I'm just looking at the area of risk audit and compliance. So this is the latest one, which is 2021, and you will see in the leaders space, there's actually in the industry a lot of risk compliance and audit tools, but they are all assessed and being measured by Gartner on a yearly basis to see who's a visionary, who's a niche, who's a challenger, who's a leader. So you've got to be in the leaders quadrant. So if you're in that block, then it means you are high on in your game. So ACL is now trading as diligent. So you do see Diligent. So it was ACL, then they moved to Galvanize. Now they've rebranded, and they were actually acquired by Diligent. Now they trade as Diligent. So in that space, can you see they are already in the lead? And they've been in that space for a number of years. I think 3-4 years they've been in that space. So it does tell you that when you've got this ACL analytic skill, that can give you comfort that you are actually competitive across the globe, because ACL has clientele across the globe. So basically, yeah, that's what ACL can do for you. I'm just gonna pause here, Doc, and I know some of us might actually be sleeping already, but I want to encourage you to wake up now, because we are going to get onto the mid side of things, where we go into the actual tool. So any questions up to this point? Did I address your question, Tina?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I forgot to mention something, which I always say it up front, that in my class, I don't expect to. In fact, when I ask a question, I do ask it to a specific individual, and so that means you must be always on guard, because I'll put you on the spotlight, not to expose you, but so that I make sure that you are attentive. So do expect me to call your name at any given point of this presentation. Okay, now let's get on to it. So normally I take this course over a period of 5 days on average. So I'll just give you on a very high level today. Doc, probably when we are left with 15 minutes, do stop me so that I can just take the team onto the platform itself as to what to go to, where to go to when they want to access and download all that. Right now, I'll just go through this theory, and I'm expecting that they raise their hands at any given point. So this is the course outline. Like I said, I normally undergo this through this over a period of 5 days on average. However, for a detailed engagement, it will take more than that. So what we will look at overall is what is ACL, and who actually uses ACL, and why those that do use ACL. Then we'll get onto some of the details of the basic concepts of data analytics in general, not specific to ACL, because you do need to understand the concept of data analytics before you even choose which tool you are going to use to do your data analysis. So what I term ACL analytics is actually the tool that you would have installed, the actual application. Then we'll go through phases of data analytics. I'll give you a nice acronym to use for you to always remember the cycle of data analysis. Some of the best practices, each and every industry has got best practices, a way of doing things, not necessarily a requirement, but it makes life easier if you've got some sort of standard to follow when you do things. I think we'll go up to that because of time, Doc, but if we still have time, we'll get onto chapter 2 as well at a very high level and see how far we can go. Do you want to breathe there, Doc? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Manla. I just want to tell you that my students are enthusiastic and hardworking, and believe it or not, some of them have already even installed ACL and they have it running on their machines. And I also want to share a little bit, Mr. Mandla, last year when you had done the lecture with my students and we recorded it, and I know you gave me permission to put it on YouTube, some of them even went and watched the YouTube video. Just out of interest, students, can you raise your hand and tell me if you have installed it and so that Mr. Mandla can go a little bit faster. And if you are having difficulty with the installation, we'll sort of those issues a little later on. Students, by show of hands, any of you have installed it and you've worked with it? There we go. There we go. See, Mr. Manla, I told you about my students.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, it's nice to see that people are in fact enthusiastic about this. And I'm going to encourage you to keep the momentum. In fact, ACL is more like a language. So, for instance, I'm Xhosa, and in professionally, I use English to communicate. And if I were to go back home in Eastern Cape in the Bundus there, and only speak Xhosa with my folks for 10 years, obviously I will forget how to speak English. So it means you need to use the tool for you to be quite acquainted with it and be comfortable. So keep practicing and use it more and more. And I tell you, you will get to a level where you will be a specialist in it. Okay, let's get on to it. Now, what is ACL? So ACL, that acronym itself stands for Audit Command Language. And this tool was actually created for auditors, initially created for auditors, but now because of its capability, it has been used by a number of other stakeholders, not just auditors. And you will see there under who uses ACL Analytics. So this is basically a data analytics tool. And I always like to make this distinction because one might just think that this is a database. No, ACL is a data analytics tool. What does that mean? ACL does not store any data within itself. It actually leverages off data from a source system. This source system could be an Excel file somewhere. Maybe someone has given you a report for you to analyze. This source system could be a flat file. This source system could be an ERP system, by the way. Maybe it's a SAP system, maybe it's an Oracle system, maybe it's ITS, those that are familiar with ITS. Maybe it's those that are in the government sector. Maybe it's Logis, maybe it's BAS. Those are some of the ERP systems that are used in the public sector. So what ACL does, it basically extracts the data from those different systems and analyze it and gives you results. So it's not a database, but it's a tool that has analysis capabilities, right? So like I mentioned, initially this system was created for the auditors, both the internal and external, and they are still using it even to this day. Some fraud examiners as well, because remember, what ACL does, it analyzes the trail that is left behind after every transaction that you made. Remember, I explained to you the digital footprint that everyone gives whenever you are transacting, be it you are accessing your WhatsApp, you are reading an email, you're leaving a digital footprint. So fraud examiners use those footprints to analyze the data and put the findings to the fore using tools like ACL. When you look into the Institute of Internal Auditors, there is what is called an Audit Charter, which also explains the lines of defense. I think they were reviewed, I think 2 or a year back, probably 2 years back. We used to have 3 lines of defense. One being your management, which is your first line of defense. The second line being your risk and those guys which are still internal, not so independent. And your third line would be your auditors. Now, your operational department, which is finance, account payable, all of these departments within the institution would be your first line of defense. So they actually use ACL quite a bit to strengthen their system of internal controls at a first line of defense level. Most industries, like I mentioned, when I was still in the consulting space, I was privileged enough to consult across industries, finance, your retail, your insurance, healthcare. So all of these industries are in fact using, most of these are using ACL. And remember, I said ACL is quite a global company. In fact, it's a company that is based in Canada, Vancouver. So there is that digital footprint that they have, and quite a number of customers are using the tool. Of all sizes, even Fortune 100, Fortune 500, most of them are actually using the system. Government agencies as well. For instance, I know last time I checked, in fact, the Auditor General was using ACL quite a bit. In fact, some of the government agencies, even in eThekwini, are using ACL. I've got some friends in the industry that are using the tool. In fact, Tina, we might take it offline. I might just know who you were referring to, because the internal audit space is quite small, especially around the data analytics space. We kind of know each other. Great stuff. Now, just to know more about the application. So these are some of the key benefits of ACL. It's very intuitive, easy to use. So when you open up the tool, and if you've used Excel before, you would appreciate that ACL is quite easy because it's similar to Excel. It's just that it's Excel on steroids. It has more capabilities than Excel. And it's very easy to use. Even if you've not had an exposure to ACL before, it's not going to be a major learning curve for you. The tool it's very intuitive. It's read only. Like I mentioned to you that ACL is not a database. What it does, it extracts data from the source and does the analysis. And the reason it's read only, if you can go into the Audit Charter from the IIA, you would see there that auditors have got to maintain independence. Now, if you interact with the system and also modify the data, it means now you are compromising the independence that you have. Now, because of that fact, ACL ticks that box and only allows you to read only the data, not make changes in it, so that that credibility can be maintained and the independence thereof. It does access any sort of data system. Back in the day we used to use, when they used to use mainframes. I was not there yet, but ACL does read mainframe in its native language. New system, in fact, clients that are still using mainframes. What they normally do before they give you the data, they transform it, or they convert it to an EBCDIC, right? From like COBOL and all of these different types of formats. But ACL can read it in its native form, which maintains the quality there and the integrity, because sometimes when you convert the data, you corrupt it along the way. But ACL, it reads it in its native language, so that it eliminates that risk of corrupting the data at conversion. It retains what is called a log file. For every transaction that you make in ACL, there will be a log file. That log file is quite useful because, one, when you are doing an audit review, you have what is called a what is it called again? Working papers, which kind of explains your process and your logic. So ACL does the same as well. For every step that you take, it retains a log, so that it can be easy for you to go and track and verify if, yes, indeed, you did do the steps according to the procedures. So it does help. Also, that log file, it helps you with automating your steps. You don't want to be doing the same thing manually over and over again. So ACL, by creating that log, it enables you to automate the process, so that you can just schedule it and have it run automatically at 12 midnight, and you just wake up in the morning with exceptions to review, and spend more time on strategic issues now, and let the computer do the mundane stuff for you. So that log is quite useful. Like I mentioned, it accesses a vast number of different systems, right? For instance, you might have a system that does your IT logs, and another system that does your vendor management, you can actually compare those data between the data between those two systems using ACL. So back in the day, auditors relied on sample testing. I'm sure you would have come across those things in your work environment, even in your curricula, that you usually test the controls on a sample basis. Now, gone are those days now with the data analytics tools, because now these tools give you capability to test your entire population, and that gives you a true picture of what is transpiring. If you are you're doing your test on a sample basis, well, you don't have 100% coverage, but it does give you an idea to a certain extent. But now with the use of ACL, you've got 100% population analysis. So that gives you the full picture. It's very fast in terms of processing. I know if you were to use Excel for big data, Excel would freeze. But now ACL doesn't do that. In fact, it's dependent also on your system capability. If you've got an N3 system, obviously it will be slow and freeze. But if you've got a developer system, it will be fast. I also mentioned to you that it enables automation, especially with the use of the log. But you can, as you get advanced on how to use ACL, you would actually write the code on your own without relying on the log. Now, the impact of using ACL, right? What it does, it helps you validate effectiveness of internal controls. I'm sure you are aware, as internal auditors, you test their controls, how effective they are. If the controls are working as intended, ACL will help you with that by looking at the underlying data. And it drives down cost of regulatory compliance. Remember, there are boxes that you need to tick when you are working with data, things like read only for integrity. So those boxes are being ticked when you are using the system. And it enhances business performance. And so remember, once you automate these procedures that you would have created, ACL will help you take out most of the time away from your shoulders and focus on the strategic issues, the things that can't really be automated. So the bottom line results, they would be credible because it's the system, it's not you. Us, we are driven by emotions. We can do the very same procedure every day, but get different results depending on our emotions. But because this is a system, it will always give you the same results if the logic is still the same and you're still working on the same data. So that bottom line results there. The enabling technology, which is ACL, it's used enterprise-wide, very powerful tool. And I already emphasized the point of continuous monitoring so that you can automate most of these things. I'm going to pause there, Doc, again, and see if there are any hands or comments before we get to the basics.
Mr. Mandla, there is a question in the chat regarding the downloading of the software.
Okay. Let's tackle that. Yeah. Let's tackle that later, Doc, when we've covered most of the stuff. But I will address the installation and the download at a later stage.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, some of the basic concepts of data analytics, not just ACL, but data analytics in general. So you look at the storage, data storage, where the data is stored, and how the data is presented, right? By using these two concepts, data storage and the data types, right? Now, in fact, let me just spend some time on here. So when you look at the data storage, now data is stored in different formats, right? Some data is stored in folders, some data is stored in tables, and all of these different formats help you with the storage. Some are actually stored in systems. I'm looking for a file here that I can actually share my screen on quickly. Let me see. Just give me one moment. In fact, I don't have to share it. I can just talk through it so that it doesn't interrupt you. You know, I don't want to be messing with your eyes and switching between screens, right? Now, your data could be stored on files. It could be stored on records. It could be stored on fields. It could be stored on bytes. It could be stored on layouts. I'll just explain what these are. Now, basically, a file, like you, I'm sure you'd be aware of this. It's basically a named collection of information that is stored and processed as an individual entity, right? So an example would be your accounts payable file or your vendor master file. So you've got this one file, which is a single entity, or employee master file. So that single entity has got all the employees in the institution, right? So you'd call that employee master file. So that is a file, has got a collection of information that is stored and processed as an individual entity. Now, records, these are often called lines or rows of data stored within a file. So you've got this file, which is a table, right? And it's got different rows or lines, right? I've made an example of an employee master or even a vendor master file. Now, say for instance, you've got 1,500 employees. So it means in your employee master file, you'll have 1,500 lines, which is a record, right? So this is all talking to storage, right? And you've got fields. These are often called columns, or in fact, I think they're called columns in Excel, right? So these are within a file where a particular piece of information is stored. So you'd have related information stored in this attribute called column or field, right? Say, for example, you've got a vendor master, like I mentioned, you would obviously have a vendor ID. So all the IDs will be stored in this one column, right? Which is your field, right? And I'm sure, I think you probably have heard of what is called a byte, right? So basically a byte is a character. So your ABCDs, one alphanumeric, printable, non-printable characters, they are all called bytes. So a non-printable character is basically a space. So if you click a space, say for example, you are typing something in your Microsoft Word, and you click a space, that is a character, even though it's non-printable. So that is a byte, right? And a byte is basically made up of, I think, 8 bits. So each 8 bits are representing a byte. So each character is represented by 8 digits, because a computer reads reads information in binary terms, zeros and ones. So you have 8 of those that represent a character. So if you've got a word Mandla, right? So each letter there is a character and is represented by 8 bits. That's how the computer reads it. Now, a record layout is basically information that helps you interpret data, right? So you've got a table, you don't know what means what in that table. You use what is called a record layout to interpret that information. This record layout is quite critical, especially when you're requesting data from IT. Say you are going to do your data analysis and you ask IT to give you some information for you to analyze. It's always important for you to ask the record layout from IT, especially if that data doesn't have columns, it doesn't have that critical information, because the layout will help you with the description of the fields, the field names, things like the data types. I'll explain what data types are, the start and the length of each field, the type. Say, for example, it's a numeric, you would use the layout to actually interpret that. Let me see if I can just use this example here to explain to you. Now, when you look at this table that you see on the screen, right? This table, pardon my inability to be graphical. So I was circling this table. So that table, can you see that it doesn't have any field names. It doesn't tell you what is in there, what is there. Then what you would use is this record layout. So this piece of information here at the bottom is actually helping you interpret this table. So that is quite critical. Now, for instance, you would see here in this record layout, it would tell you that field name is vendor number, and this vendor number is of character data type. I will explain what those are. And it will tell you that that field, which is vendor number, starts from position 1. Remember, I have said to you, each and every character is represented by bits, which make up a byte. So each and every character is a byte. So each and every location here is a byte. So if you see these small dots here, these are representing your byte. So byte position 1 would be that first one there. Byte position 2 will be this one, and so forth. Now this table layout is explaining to you that vendor number is a character, and it starts from position 1 with a length of 5. Now, if you were to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 3, so you'd know that that portion represents vendor number. And I already explained the concept of a field. So which means this part is the first field, right? Let me see if I can clean that, right? This part is the first field, right? Now, this part would be your second field, this one. Now, the second field is the invoice number, is also of character data type, and it starts from position 6, which means it starts at that 5, and you count 15 characters to the right, which would end somewhere just here, right? And the next one also is invoice date, which also starts at position 21 with about a 10 character long. Now, let me just quickly explain these data types for you, right? Before I go and spend more time on that table there. Now, essentially, you've got about 4 data types, right? You've got a character data type, you've got a numeric data type, you've got a date time data type, and you've got a logical data type, right? Now, it is important to understand these different data types because they help you interpret the data that you are given. For instance, if you look at this piece of string, which is 0908212, right? Look at this piece of string here, right? You would not know what that piece of string means until you know the data type of that string, right? Now, if I were to explain to you these different data types, like for instance, a character data type, and I'll explain 2 things here, the data type itself and how you actually format it into the system, right? So character is basically values which are alphanumeric, including symbols A to Z, 1, 2, 3, up to 9, include symbols, both printable and non-printable characters, even your space, your hashes, your dash, your end symbols, equal, plus, all of those are characters. So basically, simple explanation of a character, it's a field that you cannot perform a calculation on, right? Even if it contains numbers only, as long as the rule of thumb says you can't perform any calculation on it, that becomes a character. One example would be, say for example, an invoice number, right? You cannot say invoice number 1 plus invoice number 2. That is not logical. You can't add invoice numbers because those are characters, right? Another example, which is also in numbers, your ID number, for instance. So you've got your 13 string long ID number, only consisting of numbers, but you cannot say Mandla's ID number plus Tina's ID number. It's impossible. So you cannot perform a calculation on that. So then it becomes a character. Now, how you represent a character into the ACL, in fact, in most systems, right, you present it within double quotes, right? Some systems present it in single quotes. I think SQL uses single quotes. Python, I think, also uses double quotes. I think MATLAB uses single quotes, I can't remember. But each and every system, there's a way to format a character either in single or double quotes. That's the most general way. So in ACL, you use double quotes. Any character, any string that you cannot perform a calculation on, that becomes a character. Now numeric, I think that one is self-explanatory. That one is a field that contains a string that you can perform a calculation on, right? Now a consideration here, you don't format a numeric, you don't put quotes when you are displaying a numeric in ACL. You leave it as is, but a consideration is you need to make sure that you define the decimals, right? A string 9.02 is not the same as 902 because of the decimal. So you need to always consider the decimal because it changes the entire story if you don't consider that. An example would be a unit price, a tax rate, those would be some of the examples of a numeric field. Now a date time, which I think is quite critical. So this data type stores dates and time, right? So it has to be a valid date. I always make this example that you cannot have a date that says 35 March 2022. There's no 25th day of the 35th day of the month. So it must always be a valid date. Otherwise, if it's not a valid date, then that becomes a character field. Now, the consideration here when we are dealing with data types is the formatting. For instance, if you look at this table here, so these last two records here, they are talking about the date of the same string. In fact, let me just explain here. So if this string was to be a character, it would be something like an account number, right? So you would retain that leading 0 because it's a character. In fact, I think most of the account numbers for Standard Bank have a leading 0, and you actually retain that 0, right? Then on the very same string, now if it was numeric, can you see, with no decimal, remember I said you must consider the decimals for numeric. If it was a numeric with no decimal, it would be something like 9,082,012, right? But if it was still a decimal also, but with 2 decimal points, now it changes the value. It becomes 90,820, 12 cents, if it's money, right? Or 0.12. It changes the whole data because now you understand its data type. Now, if it was a date, the very same string, following the North American interpretation, which always starts with the month. So the first portion would be the month, the second portion would be the date, then would be the year. It would be September 8th, 2012. But if it follows the European interpretation, it would be the first part would be the date, then the second part would be the month, then the last part would be the year, which is August 9, 2012. I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to pause there a little before I go back to my slide that I was explaining there. Any question, comment, going once, twice? Thanks, Doc. Now let's go back to that slide that I was explaining. I needed to jump to this one so that you understand this concept here, right? Now I was explaining how this table layout is helping you interpret this. Obviously, now you understand the data types, right? Now I already explained these two ones, right? Now the third field, which is invoice date, starts at position 21, which is here. And it's important, remember, to define the format. Now, when you look at this, you are saying the format for this date is month / date / year. This is very important because when you define your dates, you must make sure that you define them according to the source data. How in the system how are they defined in the system? It must be translated exactly the same way when we're importing the data into ACL. I mentioned the issue of considering the decimals for numerics. So the fourth field, which is invoice amount, which is this one starting from position 31, somewhere there, right, up to 42, 43, somewhere there, because it's 12 of length, but it also includes decimals. Now, even the dot there is a character, so it's included in that 12 of length, right? Excuse me. And the last one, a character, which is product number. This one is from 43, which is somewhere there, up until the end, right? Now, this layout is helping you understand that table there. Now, let's see if you guys did follow what I was explaining. And those of you that did watch the video on YouTube probably would have seen this, and I can encourage you, I must encourage you to jump first and take that one. Let's quickly do this one. Now, looking at this table here, how many fields are there? How many fields can you see in this table? Now you must use the layout to interpret this. How many fields? And we said the fields is what stores the related data. For instance, you would have the vendor ID in the same field, all of those things in an entity. So how many fields are there? I'm going to volunteer someone, so everyone must be ready. Before I volunteer, anyone wants to attempt? I'm going to, yes, Tina?
I'm not so sure anymore. I thought it was 6.
In fact, it is 5, because remember, we said the table layout is explaining to you how you interpret this. So the first field was that one. We were told it starts from location 1 to location 5. Which is this, right? So field 1. The second field is this, which is field 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 5 fields there. Or let me rather say 5 columns. Maybe let me use that terminology, right? So how many records are there? We said the records are raw. So how many records are here? Now I said if I've got 5,000, in fact I said if I've got 1,500 employees, my employee number table would have 1,500 records. Now looking at this file here, how many records does it have? I'm going to...
Isn't it 5?
Who's saying 5? I don't see... Who's saying 5? Help me there.
It's Mawande.
It's who? Say that again.
No, I'm saying I'm Mawande.
Oh, Mawande. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I've got a story to tell about Mawande Doke, but at the end. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's basically 7 rows, right? It was the fields that were 5. It was the columns that were 5. But the rows, the records are 7. Now, how many trailing blanks? So trailing blanks means the blanks at the end of the string, right? So when you look at the invoice number, so here is the invoice number. We're told it starts from position 31 with a, no. Invoice number starts at position 6 with a length of 5, which is from here with a length of 15, from here to here. Now, how many of these trailing spaces or trailing blanks are there in the 5th record of the invoice number? So in this record, how many trailing spaces? Now do your math there. We are told that invoice number has got 15 characters, right? And we see that line number 6 used, out of that 15 character block, used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how many are left? About 9, right? So you do your math. So your leading, your trailing, yeah. So your trailing blanks here would be 15 minus 6. That gives you a 9, right? So how many leading blank spaces are there in an invoice amount for record 2? Now this is the inverse of trailing. So leading is the blanks before. Now you look at this field, right? At record number 2, right? And tell me how many leading spaces are there. Now you are told that invoice amount has got 12, a length of 12. And when you look at how many characters have been utilized here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, including the dot, 7. So you say 12 minus 7, that gives you what? 5, right? So your leading spaces would be 5. Let's see if anyone has a question or a comment. Yes, Shlongwa.
Thank you, sir. I'm not sure if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. You are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's a question regarding question number 2. The one of how many records are there? Because you said you referred to rows and you said it's 7 rows. But I don't know, maybe I just need clarity on that one, because if I count the rows, I think it's only 6 rows, not 7. So how did we get to 7 records? If you can please clarify, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. They are actually numbered here. So can you see there? So these are your rows: row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5, row 6, row 7. They are numbered there. So you've got about 7 rows in this table. Is it better, Shongo?
Oh, which table are you referring to? The one above or the one below?
No, remember this one is not a table, it's a record layout.
Oh,
so this
okay.
is helping you interpret that table.
Okay, no,
Right.
I'm covered.
So
Thank you.
this guy here to interpret that.
Okay, thank you.
There
Thank
was
you, sir.
another hand, but it went down. I can't remember who it was. If you still have a question, you can come. I'll go on and just do one.
Sir,
Yes.
can you please show me where these records are at? I don't know whether it's my Teams, it's moving slowly or what. But even when you were explaining it for long, I was still lost. Like, where?
Okay. What do you see? What do you see on your screen? What's displaying currently?
I see 2 tables, and the other one is marked red aside on the right side.
Yes. Okay. So the below one is not a table, it's a record layout. It is what helps you interpret the table above. So the actual table is the one above. So I'm asking how many records in that table, which is the one above. So they are actually marked at the beginning here, 1 up to 7. So there are about 7 records. In the very same table, you would see the fields as well. And how you get to know which field is which, you use the below record layout to see the actual field names. Because in the table above, you don't see any field names there. Is it better?
Okay, I can see it. Okay, thank you.
Cool. No Vukuza? You can unmute.
Okay. Hi, sir.
Yes.
I'm just a little bit lost, sir, on the last 2 questions. I can see where you said that the invoice number is I can see the invoice number, but I'm just getting lost in terms of where the start position and I can see the length, what you mean by the length, but the start position is confusing me. Where do we start counting from? I don't know if I explained properly.
No, what you're asking makes sense. So you see the start position here, because remember I had explained the concept of bytes. I said each and every character is a byte and it represents a location in this table, right? So from position 1, can you see that small dot here? I'm going to clean up all this, right? I'm going to clean all this. So I think it will be better. Yeah, I think this should be fine. So can you see these small dots here? These small, come on now. These small dots here at the top, they represent a position. So you've got position 1 up to position 50, right? Position 1 up to position 50. Right. Now, your vendor number starts at position 1. So you start counting from the left. Remember your number line system, it takes the same approach. Start counting from the left. So this would be position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to position 5. Then that would be your vendor number. Now from position 6, so where is position 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is position 6. For position 6 up until the length of 15, not to position 15, but up until the length of 15. So you count about 15 characters from position 6. That will take you up until 20. Then you know that is the invoice number. Then the invoice date starts at position 21. You start from there, you count up until 21. So there is where your invoice date starts, from position 21 for a length of 10. And it will probably end at 30, right? Then that's the concept there. I don't know if it's better. Nov goes there.
Yes, it is. So can you please just, if you don't mind, can you just calculate one of the last 2 questions again, please? Just one of them.
Okay, no, that's fine. So the last, I'll take the last one. So it says how many leading blank spaces are there in invoice amount for record 2. Now before we answer the first part of this question, let's locate ourselves to invoice amount record 2, right? So invoice amount according to the table layout starts at position 31, which is there, right? And it's for a length of 12, right, which is there. So we are told that this is record 2 that we are looking at. So we're looking at this guy here. Let me take my pointer. We're looking at this guy here, this one, right? Now, we know that invoice amount has a length of 12. Now, let's calculate the ones that are being used, the characters. Then we'll subtract 12. We'll subtract those that have been used from 12. Or else you can just do one by one there if your eyes are good. But I think calculating is better. So let's calculate the ones that are being used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So record 2 of invoice amount has used 7 characters out of a 12 block worth of characters. Now you minus 7 from 12, we are left with 5, right? So the leading spaces are 5 for that record. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think another problem that we are having is that your cursor and where you are pointing are not aligning. I think that's why we are getting lost, because we can see. Yeah, we can see when you start highlighting, but when you're pointing with your cursor, it doesn't align.
Okay, maybe I think it might be the network delay. But anyways, thanks for that. I do see Shezi. Shezi. You are muted. If you could unmute, please. Okay, Shez might be having audio.
Oh, hi, sorry.
Okay.
Hi,
Sorry.
sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to ask about, I don't know what word you call them, but in Excel you said it's columns, right? How did you get to that number? Firstly, let me ask Uguti, how many columns do we have on this? Because I've been struggling to count how many columns we have in this table. That's the first question. The second question is, when you point at something, is it possible that it could be visible to us, or is it just me who can't see when you point at something? Because when you point, I think it would be easy to follow, you know. Now, if you say you are pointing at something and I'm like looking and I'm just confused, I don't know where he's pointing. I hope I'm making sense. Thank you.
No, you are. I think your experience is the same with Novuguza as well. So I'm now using a highlighter so that I don't know if you see my highlighter, right? So when you look at the columns, right? Let's count the columns using the record layout, right? I'm highlighting them: column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. Those would be your columns. So the question there, the first question that says how many fields are there, it basically asks that. So when you look at that record layout, it actually explains these columns in this table by saying column 1 is actually vendor number starting from position 1 with a length of 5. Column 2 is invoice number starting from position 6 with a length of 15, and so forth and so forth. I don't know if there's any other hand, Doc. I want to, yes, Zulu. I want to jump on to the installation part, but yeah, yes, Zulu, you can come through so that we address your question.
Okay, so thank you for the part, the thing that you clarified just now. Now I get with your position because you said they are bytes. So I'm thinking with the positions you said that they are those dots that represent the bytes. With the length, please can you repeat again with the length? Is it the characters, the length that we're gonna, if it starts from position 1, which will be the first dot, and it has the length of 5, meaning we're counting 5 dots going across. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. So when you look at the length, what is very critical for you is the start position. Then you start counting from that start position according to the number of the length. Then it will give you that field for you to the right. Nobo? Well, I like this session, Doc. It's quite interactive. Thanks, Nobo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Could you please repeat what was required in record number 2? I could not get clearance there. What was required? Please.
In record number 2?
Yes, sir. In record number 2.
Okay. So the question in record number 2 is the last question, right? Which says how many leading spaces are there in invoice amount for record number 2. So where is invoice amount? Invoice amount is this field, right? This field here, right? And which one is record 2 in there? Is this field. Now let's count.
Where are you pointing at?
Let me use a different color. I'll use a different color. I'll use red, right? Okay. Where is the invoice amount field? Is this one, right? That is the invoice amount field, because we are told that invoice amount starts at position 31, position 31 being here, right? And we are told invoice amount has a length of 12. So starting from position 31 and counting 12, you'll end just before 43, right? Now the question is, on this highlighted part, on that 6705.12, sorry, now my work becomes messier and messier and messier. The question is, how many blank spaces in that field? So between this line here and this line here on this record, how many blank fields? Then we calculated the ones that are there, which gave us a 7. So if you look at those are 7 characters. 6765.12 makes up 7 characters. Then you offset it from the 12, which was our length. It gives you a 5. So basically, you've got 5 leading blank spaces. But don't worry that you might not be getting this now. I'm going to explain something to you now where you can actually take it at your pace, and what I'm going to show you now is going to help you with the more examples on explaining this concept of record layout. So don't worry yourself about that. Now I'm going to switch Doc to the download and the academy part, right? Now let's do this. Let me know if you can see my screen. I've switched now. Now this is the Gartner I was referring to, and there is your diligent there on the leaders. So you've got access to this. I'm using my DUT account here. So if you've got a DUT for life, you should be able to access Gartner there. In fact, when you go to the DUT website, under the quick links, you would see a link to Gartner. It's in fact single sign-on. So it will assist you to go in there and see this material around Gartner on, not just on ACL, on every other thing that you might think of in the industry. How to prepare for response to business disruption after aggressive cyber attacks, and a whole lot of other material. I'm not worried about that now. And we can even create libraries. So if you go to library, for instance, on there, these are the stuff that I'm actually working with in my library. But you can do that. Now, when you go to Google, I'm sure you would have those that have actually been added onto the Highbond platform. They would have received a notification from highbond.com. From notifications at highbond.com with an account activation steps, right? So that email would have a link. Then you just click on the link and follow the steps to activate your account. Those that have not been added yet, what Doc will do, will consolidate a list for me, and I will do a bulk upload onto the system so that you guys can have access to it, so that all of you can have access to the system. So once we have your account activated, as soon as you click save, what Highbond would do would take you to this page, which is the home page, the landing page for Highbond. And if you have already created the account, you can even just go to Google and type highbond.com. Then it will take you to the login page. Then you log in with the credentials that you would have created. You sign in, then you click sign in. It takes you to this page. If you forgot your credentials, you click on reset. The account, the email address that you would have activated your account with would receive an email with the password reset steps. Then you follow the steps, then you log in. It will take you here. Now, there's a couple of things that I want you to see on here. So this is what is called Launchpad, right, for ACL, right? So this is the area where you will find most of the resources. In fact, almost all of the resources that ACL can ever offer you, right? And you would see here, I've got Durban University of Technology. As long as you're a student at DUT and I've added you onto the system, you would have access to this. And I only add when I get a request from your lecturer. I don't address student by students. I get a request with a list from the lecturer, then I add those so that we manage this platform properly. Then once you land there, there's a couple of things that I want you to look at. The first thing that you would do is to download the application. You see here, I'm hoping my cursor is showing now because I'm out of presentation. I'm actually sharing a screen. So you see here where it says download. Once you've logged in, you click on that, it will open this tab for you. Then you click on download version 15.1. So every time ACL updates the version, it will show here. They started on version 1. Now, I think started on version 1, if I'm not mistaken. Now they're on version 15.1. And can you see this was actually updated on the 7th of January. So as and when they create new version, do updates, they put it here. Then it's advisable that you always visit this page so that you can leverage of the new functionalities as they come, right? I'm not going to talk about the Excel add-in for now. You need not to worry yourself about it, but essentially it's Excel with some ACL capabilities once you download this one. And I think it's not licensed based, that one. Okay. So you click on download, it downloads your application. Once you have your application downloaded, now I've actually shared an installation steps with Doc. Please do follow those steps to install the application onto your system. In fact, if you find those steps difficult to follow, you can use the ones from Highbond here. If you click on the help option here in your landing page, it will then take you to this page, which is your help page. Then you scroll down in that page, you will see where it says installation, right? It even gives you a link to the system requirements because there are some prerequisites that your system need to meet before you can even install the system. So you can just click on the installation guide. Once you do that, it takes you to this page where it takes you step by step on how to install the system, right? This is all online. Access it anywhere, everywhere, when you have time in your comfort of your home. Now, the most critical one, once you have installed and activated the account, the application with the credentials that you would have created from the email with activation steps, then you come here to Academy, all right? You click on Academy, ACL takes you to this page, right? Now, this is where you'll have all of the different courses that you can take, which are online from ACL. And it's critical that you get these certifications because they are recognized in the industry. In fact, they also give you some CPE hours when you take these courses. In here, the first course that I would like for you to do is the basics of analytics. You click on it. It's not a long course. It takes about 1.5 hours. And in fact, you can go in and do it. If you don't finish, you come back again, you start off where you left. It's totally online at your own pace. However, you just need to finish it within a period of a year from when you started it. Otherwise, they will override it from ACL Canada. But what Dr. Prinavin has adopted is that because this will form part of your curricula, it's important that you do it right away so that you can get that exposure and get those marks as well. So you don't have to wait for the entire year for that. And it only takes about 1.5. And once you complete this basics of analytics, right, you go back to the academy and take the exam. Can you see exam of basics of analytics? You take it. It will say, it will tell you when you've completed the courses. Can you see here? No pressure, but I've completed quite a bit. And this was not done in a space of 3 days, by the way. It's years and years and years and years. And every time you log in onto the academy, you get points, right? And there's leaderboards across the world of all of the ACL users. So the more you log in, you take the courses, you get the points. So here I've got about 22,000 and some odd. And you can get there as well, depending on how many times you log in and how many courses you take and complete. Now, once you take all of these courses, you will get a certificate for each and every exam that you take, right? In fact, up to ACDA level 4, in fact, up to ACDA level 3, DUT has covered that for you. You can do these ones for free. But now when you want to get to the intermediate level and some more advanced levels, you will have to pay for those ones. But I encourage you to at least take 1 up to 3. Those are very much critical. And once you take these courses, you will appreciate the importance of data analytics. And in fact, you would once you take the first one, you will be motivated to go on and take the next one because it kind of flows nicely for you. And I'm hoping that you would take some time out and complete these courses. So Doc, I'm going to end it here. We are 2 minutes over. Today we just covered theory, by the way. And I'm thinking maybe what we can do, we can schedule another session sometime where we can just fill in some of the gaps from the online courses that they would have taken. Over to you, Doc. Thanks.
Mr. Mandla, sir, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. And believe it or not, I even learned something today. So I'm happy that you have done this. And I know my students are happy. Oh, there's Tina clapping out there. Mr. Mandla, thank you very much for the basics analytics and taking us through it. I have shared a Google document in the chat. My students, there must be about 5 or 6 students, I think, that need to sort it out because they have registered late. And I just like to remind the students that I am making it compulsory that they must do the basics of analytics. It is compulsory. And the due date is next week, Monday. And Mr. Manley, if you told me that it only takes 1.5 hours, my students, oh, they're too fast. If it took 1.5 hours, they're going to take 1 hour to do it, right? So
yeah, sorry, Doc, I had promised to tell you something about Mawande. I almost forgot. Mawande is one of the homeboys. He's from Eastern Cape. In fact, he also attended at Walter Sisulu. We actually attended at the same time, so we know each other very, very well. At a personal level, not just a colleague, or we know each other very, very well.
Small world, Mr. Mandla.
It's a very small world. In fact, when he was sending me an email for installing, for adding him onto Highbond, I was like, okay, this is too good to be true. Then I had to dig his number and call him, and only to find out it's really him.
Wow.
That was like, how many years ago, Mawande? How many years ago? Probably 10 or 12 years ago, yeah, when we were in university together.
Yes. Oh, and look at this, now you're teaching him. Oh, Mr. Mandla, sir, small world. I'm so happy that it is so. And why I'm also happy is that now you have to help us because you've got a contact in the class. And if I can't get to you, I'm going to get to your contact. But not that I have to worry about that. I know Mr. Mandla is very helpful. And I'm so happy that you had to share all these details, especially the thing about the examination. You know, Mr. Mandla, last year, we also offered the students to write the exams. And, you know, there were about 3 or 4 students that were interested. But when it came and I opened it out and I said, listen, if they are able to write the exams, I know you mentioned it was in dollars. I even went and sourced funding. I got the head of department to agree to using some of her budget to pay for the exams. But Mr. Mandla said nobody wrote the external exams. They were all compatible with the internal certifications and the internal exams. Now I'm going to put the challenge out to Tina and to the rest of my students that whoever writes or attempts to write the exams, Mr. Mandla, I'm going to try and get funding for it. I'm not sure what the amount is, Mr. Mandla. How much is it for the exams?
Last time I checked, Doc, it was oh, that was last year. Eh? No,
Yes.
let me check and confirm so that I give correct information. I don't
Okay.
want to mislead anyone.
All right.
Yeah, let me check, and I'll communicate with you.
Okay.
Then let the students know. And I'm
Okay.
available, Doc, should they have any questions. So I'll be available. I want to
Yes.
put my contact details quickly.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Mandla. That would be lovely.
Let's see if they can see. Yeah. So there is my contact details. And
Excellent.
colleagues, don't abuse the cell number that you see there.
Oh, you shouldn't put that on there, Mr. Mandla. My students have my cell number. Over the weekend, they were messaging me. Today, Tina called me as well. And luckily, I got the number stored, so I answered it. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
Mr. Mandla, sir, there's a question. One of the students. Go
Yes,
ahead.
you can come in. No, Vuguza.
Hi, sir. I wanted to ask, Uti, are we, in terms of the installation, can we also get assistance, those of us who, well, Mina, I did download it, and on the day that I downloaded it, it was fine. I could even see I think it was the sample files. But now, when I log into, I'm talking about ACR, when I log in now, I like there's nothing there. It's
Okay.
just blank.
Perhaps just so we coordinate the effort, maybe Doc, you can schedule maybe a 30 minutes technical session, just focusing on installation. But the installation guide that I had shared should give you some level of guidance. But I'm happy to spend 30 minutes or so just taking care of the technical issues.
Oh, that will be excellent, Mr. Manley, sir. I have shared the MS Word document regarding installation with my students. I hope that was okay. And what I noticed is, believe it or not, we actually have 37 students in the class out of a possible 46. So I'm having like about a 79–80% attendance. And this is because students like the 5 o'clock session more than the during the week that they have sessions scheduled. And this is our official time. So I'd like to keep to official times as well, so that I don't encroach on, Dr. Mudley's lectures or Dr. Jali's lectures, who also have lectures on at 5 o'clock. So that would be our strategy going forward. But I'm sure after they read the installation guide and they watch the video from last year, and I'm also going to invite them to my last year's MS Teams class, they would have a way of installing the software. I'd like my students to struggle a little as well, Mr. Manley, sir, because they are postgraduate students. These are not undergraduate students where we've got to spoon feed them and show them step by step how everything is done. Mr. Mandla, sir, you're a postgraduate student. How often does your supervisor meet you and walk you through everything? I'm sure he doesn't do it.
Being spoon-fed doesn't help, Doc.
Yes.
You've got to stretch yourself for you to get to appreciate what you've acquired.
Yes.
So if someone spoon-feeds you, you would not appreciate your knowledge.
Exactly. And Mr. Manla, sir, they've already went through MATLAB certification. I don't want to tell you and talk to you and flatter my students, but they did an entire certification in MATLAB, and I threw them in at the deep end, and believe it or not, so many of them got 100% in the certification. So they are capable, they can do it, it can be done. And I want them to struggle a little before we set up a session. Would that be okay, Mr. Mandla?
That's fine with me, Doc. Just let me know when you need me.
Okay, so for now, Mr. Mandla, I've already shared the Google document and I already have requests for it to share. I don't open out the permissions on Google Doc. Only if you request permission, then only you are able to access it. So hopefully by tomorrow, I'll have the students that have registered late, so that I'll give a list of students and student numbers with their names. Most probably end of business tomorrow. And after tomorrow, Mr. Mandla, sir, I don't think we're going to allow anybody else to register. What do you think, Mr. Mandla?
Yes, there must be penalties, Doc.
Yes, I think so too. I think so too.
We cannot open it up indefinitely.
Yes, and they cannot be asking you one at a time. You know, today one request and another request, because Mr. Mandla said, don't you have a full-time job as well? Plus you get hundreds of other emails from everybody else. So we don't want to trouble you. And I would like our students to sort out their registrations by Tuesday. That's tomorrow is the last day. And the analytics, I'm going to make it due on Monday. And they know I'm very strict, right? So next week, Monday, they're going to have an assessment. I would like to see it. I'd just like to share my screen to show them, Mr. Mandla, sir, what the certificate would look like. I found one of my students, and you can verify that this is exactly the certificate that they would see. So, Mr. Mandla, I'm sharing my screen, and it says, Shirav Maniram has successfully completed applying filters and creating computed fields in analytics. And it says, in order to achieve it, you need a minimum of 70%. This was one of the few students who did the applying filters. This is one after the basics in analytics. Mr. Mandla, verify that for me.
That's correct, Doc. So this one is the second one in the basics of analytics. Yeah.
Yes. And Mr. Mandla, sir, if you were a person hiring a data analyst, and in their CV they had to have the certificate, what would you? And there's another a person that's coming for the interview, and they don't have the certificate. Just tell me your gut feeling, Mr. Mandla.
Yeah, I'll obviously go for the one that has the certificate, Doc. We are in the 4th Industrial Revolution now. So I did mention in my opening remarks that when you do have skills, do have someone to authenticate those skills, and this certificate authenticates the skill set that this colleague has around data analytics. So it's very important.
Mr. Mandla, that's what I wanted you to say. Excellent. Thank you very much. I hope my students heard that the work we are doing is so important. And I'm so glad that Tina had mentioned it in the opening statements where she said that she works at a Etsikwini municipality, and there's this data analyst and how everybody looks up to him. So Tina, I want you to definitely write the exams, and you are going to show off that your lecturer and Mr. Mandla, sir, who's also your lecturer now because he's taught you, have introduced you to this software, ACL. And not only that, you have a piece of paper that says you can do something. So that's the whole objective of this, Mr. Mandla, sir. And that's the objective for my students as well who are doing postgraduate work. Some of them had mentioned to me that they are looking for employment, and I want to upskill them so that they are certified and they have an edge over another student that's applying for a job. Like you said, Mr. Mandla, that you will take this person for the job employment because you know that applying filters and creating computed fields in analytics is something that they have an edge over someone else. So when you finish at the end of this year, students, with a postgraduate diploma, you're not going to just have a postgraduate diploma in your CV. You are going to include the MATLAB certification. You are going to include this certification, the ACL. And by the way, our core curriculum is SAP ERP systems. And believe it or not, I've got the licenses for every single one of you. And DUT is paying a lot of money for that. Mr. Mandla, sir, will tell you that we have to go through the licensing at ITSS, and it was a long process. And believe it or not, what Mr. Mandla was talking about, all these concepts of a field, a bit, a byte, data concepts. Mr. Mandla, sir, you actually helped me out, because now I'm not going to teach the students that aspect of ERP and SAP. Those concepts are applicable to what I'm going to talk to you about in ERP systems. So, Mr. Mandla, thank you very much, sir. And just to tell you, I don't repeat lectures. And now that you have taught them this, and you mentioned something about a record, a field, a data type, that we will use in ERP systems. And I like that joke where you said there's no such thing as 35th of March. Well, I have to tell you this, the SAP ERP system is so clever. Well, I think it's clever. it will not allow you to enter in the data like 35 March. So we're still lucky with that. So Mr. Manla, I know it's almost 6:45. By the way, we have 2 hours for this lecture, Mr. Manla, so I'm going to keep them as long as possible. I still have to talk to them, Mr. Manla. I'm not sure if you want to stay on till 7 o'clock, Mr. Manla, sir, or you want to go and have supper. Mr. Manla, sir? Oh,
yes, I was talking to myself, Doc.
Oh, sorry.
I was muted. Let me leave you to it, Doc,
okay.
and give the family their time back.
Excellent. Mr. Mandla, sir, on behalf of my students, thank you very much for your time that you've spent with us. Thank you very much for already registering. I think you've registered more than half of my students, and you still have a few more to go. And I hope that my students, especially Tina, I'm putting her on the spot, I'm putting pressure on her, that she goes and writes the external examination. And she makes you proud, and she makes me proud. So again, students, let's give Mr. Mandla a lovely clap. I'm not sure if you want to put your video on and thank him. Students, anybody? Mr. Mandla, thank you very much. Ah, they're getting all the claps at the back there.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. God bless you, Mr. Manla. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Manla, sir. Goodbye to Mr. Manla. Right. Right. Now, the rest of my students, going forward, I'd like you to register for the high bond account if you haven't already. Mr. Mandla has been very gracious to share his cell phone number with us. So you'll be able to contact him on WhatsApp or SMS to sort out your installation. You need to install the software. And you are a postgraduate student. If you can install WhatsApp on your cell phone, then I'm sure you shouldn't have a problem with installing ACL software. All you got to do is download it and run the installation file. Yes, go ahead with the question.
Sir, my issue here was that I think it might, I don't know, maybe it's a technical issue or there's something wrong, because like I said, I had downloaded it, and when I initially downloaded it, it was successful, it was fine. I could even see the sample files, everything was fine. But now when I log in again, everything has disappeared. So that's why I'm thinking maybe I did something wrong or something is messed up. So I'm not sure whether
Okay, right. Now, I don't have this, I can't see what's happening on your screen, but what I can advise is the file that you downloaded, it would be in a zipped format. I would suggest that you remove the installation that you had and reinstall it from the file that you downloaded. All right, before we trouble Mr. Mandla, 9 times out of 10, that would sort the issue out. Alternatively, there are quite a few students who've emailed me and told me that they were successful. Now, I'd like you all to be friends with your fellow students. If we were face to face, you would be sitting next to a computer and you could have helped your fellow student with an installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the rest of the students if they could please help you, share their experiences of how they resolve such an issue. Failing which, then you and I will have a consultation, or if you don't think that I could do it, maybe Mr. Manla would help us because he's offered us his assistance. I could call him in on Monday and we could do that. But I don't want to waste everybody's time because there are quite a few students who are beginning to start the certification, and that would be my way forward. Would that be okay?
Yes, that's fine, sir. I'll do what you said about deleting it and downloading it again from the subfolder.
Don't delete it. Go and select Add Remove Programs. Okay? From your PC. If you delete it, it will still keep the installation files on your in the folder. So you go and uninstall the program, Google how to uninstall a program, and restart your machine, and then go and install it from the download file. If I may ask, are you using a fiber, ADSL, or your phone to surf the internet?
I'm using a fiber.
Ooh, you so lucky, fiber. So believe it or not, you can even reinstall by downloading the file. All right, so that's good. Fiber is pretty fast. If I may ask, how long did it take to download using your fiber line?
No, a few minutes. I think it took about 3, 4 minutes. It wasn't long.
Excellent.
For me, too.
I'm so happy you mentioning this, because if there are other students that are having issues and they don't have fiber connection, maybe you could share the link with them, or maybe they could meet and probably share it over by a flash drive or something like that, right? So thank you very much for that question, and thank you for sharing, because caring is sharing. Don't I always say that? Caring is sharing and sharing is caring. So yeah. Right. Is there anybody else with a question? Anyone else with a question? There was somebody that asked me about, yes, Musa and Corsi, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. So my problem or my challenge is with the credentials. I have the email that was sent. When I'm trying to activate, it does not activate the account.
Okay.
So that's where my issue is. Thanks.
Sure. The issue there is that you must use your Duty for Life email account. You cannot use a Gmail account or your work email account. That's step number one. The other point is, when Mr. Mandla was talking, he mentioned on the left-hand side, it says Durban University of Technology. That indicates that it is a legitimate account. Now, believe it, for me to get you guys registered, I had to ensure that one, DUT was picking up the tab for the licensing. So it is only registered students that would have access to this. And by the way, it's not like your email account, DUT for Life, that's, you can say DUT is for life. This high bond account has an expiration date. So that's one point. If you like, you could email Mr. Manla. I'll share his email address with you and request to check whether you do have a registered account with high bond. All right. Would that help you?
Yes, thanks so much. I think I should email him to check. Maybe it's not there. Thanks.
Okay, great. Great, right? Next question. There was a question that someone had posed to me about Wakelet. By the way, I hope you don't mind if you'll send me an email and I copy everybody else, because sometimes I get the same email 2 or 3 times, and I just find it's okay to set it up. Besides, we're all students in here. So what I've done is Wakelet. I've created a little Wakelet for all of us, and I've shared Mr. Manla's lecture. There's the links out there. I hope you can see it. I've shared it, and I've shared his lecture from last year. Now, it takes me some time to download the lecture and to upload it to YouTube. But what Mr. Mandla did tonight, he actually did this last year, 25th of May, 2021. You'll see this year in 2022, I decided to start with ACL early. If you notice the way I schedule my lectures, I started with MATLAB. Even before MATLAB was finished, I started talking about ACL. Even before ACL is finished, I'm starting to talk about SAP S4HANA, Zambikes. In fact, many of you are requesting the password. And I know I should have shared it with everyone, but then I said, no, I want to know who is working and when they are working. So when a student sent me an email, please, sir, I want the password. Only when you sent me the email did I reply with the password. And once you get access to SAP S4HANA, I'd like you all to go and explore. When I say explore, click on the links. Don't worry, you won't go and delete anything. It's off the server, it's cloud-based, and DUT is paying a hell of a lot of money for licensing SAP S4HANA. Okay, and I want you to take advantage of that. So what I'd like you to do for tonight ensure that you have sorted out your ACL installation. Ensure that you watch, I'll share the videos with you on ACL. And the basics of ACL analytics is very, very simple. It'll take, like Mr. Mandla said, 1.5 hours. I did that certification, I passed it. When you complete that certification, which is due latest next week, Monday, you will either upload it to a link that I will share with you, or some of you are emailing it to me, and I will give you a mark for the certification, which, trust me, it's easy marks towards your exams. As it stands, this is a continuous assessment course, meaning I can assess you continually. And as it stands, there's no examination because we are still in remote teaching and learning mode. Last semester, I had 7 assessments, and one of my staff members asked me, how could you afford to give them 7 assessments? And I told them it was very easy. I have online certifications. This is an information technology course, and all I got to check is whether they have a certification from, in this case, ACL. Only you have access to ACL high bond account. Only you can do the account activation and go through the certification. Only you will pass it because only you want that certification, right? I don't expect you to cheat. I don't expect you to, do anything untoward. I will give you the mark that the certification gives you on the, well, I can't say piece of paper because it's actually electronic. All right. So I'd like you to do that. Like I told you, it's 1.5 hours of your time. This is part of your course curriculum. You will need to do that by Monday. And I showed you there was one student that did applying filters, that certification. And if you go ahead and you attempt the examination and you are having issues in terms of payment, by the way, Mr. Mandla didn't want to tell you, it's actually in dollars. Last year, it was about, I think it was $150. Now, if you had to work out the Rand dollar exchange, $150, you're looking at about, let's say, between 1.6, 1.7. I don't know what the Rand dollar exchange is. And if all of you want to write the exams, well, I'm going to be in trouble because I don't think my head of department would sponsor all of you, right? But I'm prepared to go that route. If you write the external examinations, which is an international qualification, by the way, an international certification. Like Mr. Mandla mentioned, this is a company based in Canada, Vancouver. So I'm not sure if any of you are thinking of leaving South Africa, but if you are going anywhere else, you can say, I've got an international certification, just like the SAP ERP S4HANA certification, which, by the way, I can show off. I passed the trainer last year. Okay, so that we'll talk about when I start with SAP S4HANA assessment, ERP concepts. Do I have a question from anybody? Speak now or forever hold your peace. It's 7 o'clock. Yes, Tina, go ahead.
Oh, yes, thanks. I just wanted to find out if you're going to be sending the names of those who registered late to Mr. Mandla.
Yes.
For ACL downloading.
Yes. So okay. Tina, if you look at the chat, Tina, it says, there we go. It says Google Docs. First, I put the link there. It says https://docs.google.com spreadsheets. And it says for all those students who require ACL account activation, the high bond activation. So if you click on that link, it will take you to a Google Doc. It's a similar Google Doc to where you entered in your website assessment. And when you click on that, you fill in your surname, I think it's your first name, and your student number and your email address. Tomorrow afternoon, I will send that off to Mr. Manley, and he generally works ASAP. Wednesday morning, you will get it. So Will that help you, Tina? Hello,
Yes,
Tina.
sir. Yes, sir.
Now, Tina, I also noticed when you logged into the MS Teams meeting, you logged in with your Gmail account. It wasn't a DUT for life. Is that so? You're a guest
Yep.
account. Right. Tina, when
Yes.
you sort out your DUT for life email account?
I'm gonna try with this one. I did receive the link on my phone. It's just that I prefer using my laptop. So I think if I log on using the phone, it will come up with the DUT for life
Okay.
account. Yeah.
Okay. Because in the beginning, when I was sending emails, your email, the 20051 one, was coming back, undelivered. So please sort that out ASAP, because the high bond account will only work off your DUT for life account. Same thing with the SAP S4HANA, the Zambikes account. I registered you with your student numbers, right? Yeah, so I hope that answers your question. There was another hand up. Yes, B Zulu.
Afternoon, sir, and the rest of the class. This is more of a request for help, sir. I feel like the emails that are coming through from the school, from our DUT for life email addresses, there are a lot of them from other lecturers and yourself, as well as the institution, and other emails from maybe you, for us who have our emails linked. So there's a lot of things that come through. May I please ask if there's a way that we can maybe prioritize certain emails so that we know that this is urgent, such as when I received an email about requesting the password for SAP, I didn't see it because it was layered under so many emails to the point where I only requested it a lot later on when I filtered through, when I had time to filter through all the emails and read.
Sure.
So may I please ask that we find a system that'll...
Excellent. Okay, now that's the whole purpose of me starting this Wakelet or the Padlet, because students were forgetting the email addresses or the website addresses. Now, what you can do is to set up a rule in Outlook. In fact, if you think you receive lots of email, you should see my inbox, how many emails that they have. And let me tell you, my wife also works for DUT. She's got thousands of emails. When I say thousands, unread, unopened, because she gets so much, right? On that point, one day you'll be doing postgrad work. Maybe you can talk to her for funding and conferencing and all of that goes with it. Shh, I hope she's not listening to me. Now she'll be asking, why are you going and sharing my details with everybody? Okay, so I promise I'm going to try and restrict my emails. But unfortunately, my emails are important. And let me tell you something else. I love sending emails, even though I sent it so many years. It's like, gosh, over 25, 30 years. And also there's an award that a lecturer who sends the most amount of emails gets a prize. And I'm trying for that one there, right? But don't worry, I'll try and keep it to very important ones. The one that comes from something about DUT grants, I don't know why they said that to everybody. Set up a rule where you can forward that immediately to a folder. I do that with all the junk mail that comes from Pick and Pay and Woolworths. I went there once and now I'm getting email all the time. That you could do. I also have the WhatsApp. The WhatsApp will be used for conversational things, like if you are what happened now. There were some students that didn't log in because they had issues with the network. So I'll use that. And trust me, tell me if I'm overdoing it as well. You say, sir, just take me off the list. And I'm just afraid that sometimes I will tell one student something and I won't tell another student something else. And one of the reasons that I copy everybody is that, sometimes students say, sir, but you're favoring Tina because she works for a municipality and you only send her all the emails and you don't send anybody else. So that was my reason for sending to everyone. The password, okay, I just made it a little bit difficult because I wanted all of you all to send me email. But once we get this Padlet working or the Wakelet working, then you will only have access to that one. By the second semester, I cut down emails drastically because MS Teams works, Moodle works properly, ACL is working, S4HANA is working, then that's where you'll need to access it. All right. So I hope I answered that question. Is that in order? It was B Zulu that had asked me that question.
Yes, yes, sir, it is, and thank you so much. We really do appreciate all the emails, sir, because they are important and they keep us updated. I'd also like to make a request, sir. Is there a way that you can maybe upload on Moodle? There are there are places where they upload. I'm sorry, I don't know how to put this into words, but they'll upload a task. Let's say you have an assessment, such as now we have to ensure that maybe we email you for the passwords, or we download certain apps and get them activated, and then we mark as done so that we know what tasks need completion by which date, so that we can keep in line with deadlines. I've noticed that for this module, we don't have that option, so we might do something that is, because this weekend over our personal group, we were discussing a lot of how do we log into this, how do we do that, whereas we had other things to prioritize for this module. So
okay, I hear you. I hear you. I'm sharing my screen right now, and I have an assessment schedule on Wakelet. So if you click on the assessment schedule, it will inform you of my schedule. So right now, you'd see the first one is done, assessment MATLAB, right? And I even gave people marks. By the way, I'm still waiting for some outstanding assessment in MATLAB. Please, please, please send me those assessments, because that will bring down your course mark. Then the next one, the assessment, is the website creation. That's done. Then the next assessment is ACL, which is your basics in analytics. That'll take you an hour and a half. You must remember, I only see you guys, on this Monday evening, and we were supposed to have like a full-time lecture somewhere along the line. I could always schedule that, and then I know my attendance will really drop. I promise, even if you ask me 10 times, that's my job. I'm supposed to answer your questions. You ask me when the assessment is due, I will give you, time to sort it out. I know you are working. You send me a WhatsApp. Oh, and I got lots of WhatsApp. In fact, Tina called me today as well. So lucky I had the number saved and I answered it. I try and respond to every email within 24 hours. I get email on my phone as well, so I will allow that. And listen, I don't want you copying work. Even if you tell me I'm having a difficulty, that I'm unable to do something, I will penalize you a small little percentage for not being on time. Or sometimes I'll even forget about that. But I want you to learn. This is continuous assessment. This is continually assessed. I always tell my students, if you spent an hour with me and if you did not learn anything in that hour, then you wasted your time and you wasted my time. So I'd like to think that the hour we spent with each other, or the 2 hours that we spent that's allocated to us on a Monday evening, is important enough that you leave at 7 o'clock in the evening knowing 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 more facts than what you learned at 5 o'clock before that. All right. And if you look at my schedule, the way I work in terms of my strategy, I've already set you up telling you that Zambikes is important. Some of you have already looked at the Zambikes case study, and that's your work for SAP S4HANA, right? I will still sort out ACL next week, Monday, whatever's outstanding, and there will be some students like that, but I will definitely go on to SAP S4HANA ERP concepts, because that's important. That's the core business of this course, right? ACL, I found it important enough because you are internal auditing and taxation students and accounting students, and this is a very, very important concept to acquire, even the certification. Okay, so, and also you are postgraduate students. You are not undergraduate students. I can't be spoon feeding you. I used to teach first years, and trust me, first years you will have 5, 6 lectures a week. When I used to share my cell phone number with the first year students, oh, they'll be asking me questions like crazy. My daughter's a first year student, and I listen to her in lectures now and then with the lecturer, and I thank my lucky stars that I'm not teaching first year anymore. that I have postgraduate students, that I have mature students that, don't ask the questions at a level of a first year. I can't for the life of me imagine how preschool teachers will behave with students. Okay, so that was a side event. Oh my God, look at the time, it's 7:10. My wife's going to tell me, what about supper? There's another question. Yes, go ahead. H. Pungula.
Hi, sir.
Hi.
Well, I have a bit of a concern actually, because I've created my website, but my issue now is that I can't seem to save on that spreadsheet that you granted me permission. So what do I do in that instant?
Okay, believe it or not, it's not your fault. I actually took away the permission, so you can't do it because I am in control, right? I'm the boss in this class. I'm the lecturer, and that means you are late. You were supposed to have done this in the time frame allocated. So what I will do is I will reopen that just for you, but shh, don't tell anybody else. I hope they're not listening to this, right? I want you to do that. Would that help you?
Yes, sir. I'll request your permission again.
Yes. Now that you'll do on Google Docs. Now let me tell you why I'm doing Google Docs and why I asked you to do MATLAB and why I'm doing ACL. This course is called Information Technology. I want you to be exposed to as many information technology platforms as possible. So that's why I'll use Google Docs. I'll use uploading a document. I'll use Dropbox. I'll use Google Drive, right? Zed Zulu, go ahead with your question.
Yes, hi, sir. I just went on the, how are you?
Well, I'm fantastic. I'm so glad you are here and you're staying extra 13 minutes.
Yes, sir. I just went on the high bond link that you gave us. It says access denied, and then I should request access. But the problem is, it will only allow me to request access with my personal Gmail account. It won't allow me to put in my DUT account. How do I get around that?
Okay, great. Did Mr. Mandla send you an email regarding the high bond account?
Yes.
Okay, I would advise you to go and click on that link and follow the instructions. Don't go through your Gmail account because I'd like it to be official that you are a student at DUT. We are paying for the licensing of ACL, and I was, when I say I nagged my head of department, I nagged the program coordinator, I said, yes, we want this for the student. So if you use your Gmail account, then we don't have a record of students that are accessing the high bond account. So if you're still having issues with that, what I would suggest is send Mr. Mandla an email to check whether you are indeed registered for the ACL high bond account. All right? Would that help you?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Next question. I can see Al Shazi. Is it Al Shazi? Go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hi. I think I have the same problem with that of Mr. Pungula.
Okay.
We've been communicating on email about my website that I cannot, I'm not able to paste it on that spreadsheet.
Right. Now that I did deliberately. Right. No, that I did deliberately. Yeah. No. I have to be a little bit strict, okay? Because everybody says I'm too lenient with the students. I give them a second chance, a third chance. So I said this year I'm going to be strict. When there's a due date in place, they need to have done it. So if you send me another request, I'll open it so that you can paste it. And I need to check that out ASAP because I want to see whether you have used the Zambikes example as a strategy to create a website for you. And I hope that at least one or two students will decide to start their business and to go ahead with it. One of the students were talking about giving out loans and using the website to advertise that. Another one spoke about pedicures and manicures and advertising it on the website. So without any money outlay as such, you don't have to go and buy or build an office, or go and rent office space, or even if it means a spaza shop or to create a little tent or something like that. You can start a business by being an entrepreneur. I love that word, entrepreneur. We throw it around all the time, and here's the starting point of entrepreneurship, a website. I hope that at least 1 or 2 students will decide to take their business idea further. And if you are interested, I can introduce you to Prof. Matong, who is the director of the entrepreneurial department of study or unit. And there's funding available for you. So if you want to take your website, which I started with, you started, and you tell her, there's my business idea. And my sir was a bit strict with me. He didn't allow me to post it on the Google spreadsheet, but I want to prove him wrong, and I want to create a business and make money and make lots of profit and pay taxes like my lecturer. Then she'll be interested in doing that. And she can help you with a company registration, so you can become a director of a company even before you graduate from your postgraduate diploma. Right? So there are opportunities available, and I'm here to assist you and help you. You are postgraduate students. You should not just be thinking of the diploma in postgraduate accounting and auditing, and that's your white piece of paper. No, you must acquire certifications from ACL, from MATLAB, start your business. And one of the reasons I award students marks is that my experience as a teacher, as a lecturer for 25 years, if you don't tell the students that they are getting marks for it, they don't do it. If you say it's for enrichment purposes, nobody goes for it. Like I sent you all an email about mobile literacy. I said it's for enrichment purposes. Anybody does that would get extra credits. I was there. Not a single one of you attended. But if I had to tell you that marks were being awarded, I promise you, you will do it. You'll even ask me the question, sir, why did I close off the Google Doc and I want to access it, right? So
we were there. We were there.
You went. Excellent. Excellent. I'm so happy. I didn't recognize the student number. I'm so happy. Well done. And are you going to write that as certification? It'll take you 10 minutes. I did it in 5 minutes.
Is that the multiple choice?
Yes.
I did that thing that had about 15, 20 questions.
Yes. You did it.
I did it.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. Yeah. Tina, did you also do that?
Yes, I did.
Oh, so 2 out of my 48 students. Excellent, excellent, excellent. See, I was just testing you out to see who did it. I'm so happy I did it. And you're going to get a certification from... Oh, 3. Oh, excellent. Well done, well done. Well, I also did it, and I also got my daughter to do that as well, right? Mobile literacy. So I'm so happy when I get offers like this for students, and it's free. Well, not exactly free. DUT is covering the costs, right? They've got sponsorships for it, and they want to improve students' literacy. So well done. I'm so happy for that. Thank you very much. Right? See how important my emails are. Okay. Next question. Anybody else? Anyone else? It's 7:20. I think let's stop now. We're going to save our data and our bandwidth and all that goes with it. Except some people are so lucky they got fiber, so I'm sure they don't have an issue with download speeds. All right.
Sir, and just one more thing. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So sorry. On this high bond link that you've given us for those who require access to ACL. Yes. When I click on it, it says couldn't find your Google account. Is it because I'm still awaiting approval from Mandla, or is it because my account is
Mandla? Yes.
Okay.
Now let me tell you how it works. You don't need to register with ACL. You fill in your details on the Google Doc that I've posted in the chat. I will forward that to Mr. Manley. Mr. Manley creates the accounts for you with your student number. It's only because we pay per student, I think it is. It's not like a site license like MATLAB. Everyone just has access. All right. So that's one. And and I want you all to be a registered account user, right? So if you're having issues, Tina, please contact Mr. Mandla. I'll share his details now that he said, you know, y'all can have his cell phone number, so y'all can WhatsApp him. Obviously, during office hours, not after hours, please, if you don't mind. He did say that he has a wife and 3 kids to sort out, right, and family, ma'am. So let's do that. And I'll give you all some time, okay? I know I said next week it's due. If I don't put pressure on you, y'all will take it easy, right? Those students who send it first, I promise you 100%. How's that as a motivation to get it done? All right? All right, Tina?
I think he said he wants the list from you. So you won't take my email.
No. You must send you must fill in, click on the link that I have in the chat, Tina.
Yes, I have.
And fill in your details.
I did put in my email address, but then it said couldn't find your Google account.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right, do me a favor. We don't want to waste everybody's time. You send me a screenshot of your error.
Okay.
By the way,
all right.
Everybody, if you are having issues, send me a screenshot, then I can see what the problem is. For example, some of you had problems with accessing SAP SVRE Launchpad, and the client was 000. You're supposed to have changed the client to 444. That client is dedicated to DUT students, right? And ZMB, like I've got the account 000, then ZMB 0001, 0002. I'm going to keep a record of the student, and I know which student has which account. Last year there was a student that failed the exam. No, well, it wasn't an exam, it was an assessment. And he said, no, sir, I did the work, everything. And then when I went and checked my records, he never logged into that course ever. And when I questioned him again, he said, no, sir, somebody else, I did it after. I said, no, that's not the issue. You know, the whole purpose of me giving you an individual account, just like with High Bond as well, Mr. Mandla would be able to tell me in 2 weeks' time who has logged in, when they logged in, whether they've done the certification or not. That's the whole purpose of us requesting that you use your DUT email account and not a Gmail or any other account, right? Oh, there's another one, NVSC. I also did it. Excellent, well done. I'm so happy, right? When you get your certification, you send it to me, and I promise you I'll give you the extra credit, right? Okay. And let me tell you how extra credit works. In the event that we have 5 assessments and you have done extra credit certification, like the mobile literacy, which is actually a first-year course, I'll tell you now. But because you went ahead and did a little extra work for me, especially with IT, and let's say, for instance, you are sitting on a 74 and you need a 75, 1% to pass and get a distinction, I will award it to you, no questions asked. And by the way, this is being recorded, so you can hold it to me. If you are sitting at